there. So, discourse happened, and it's horrible. This has been super frustrating, like on a very just deep level. The fact that I have to deal with this and talk about it is really irritating because there's a lot of layers. It's very nuanced, and no matter what I say tonight, I am going to get it wrong. So I want to be very clear that as I speak about this, I'm not just speaking from my knowledge of psychology, I'm also speaking as my personal experience. And so I am trusting all of you to understand the difference between those things as I'm using them. If I'm talking about what I know from data, that's my professional person. If I am talking about my personal experiences, duh. So with that said, we're going to do things a little differently. We're actually going to put forth an argument. And first, I'm going to give a picture for our thesis. That sound good, Kisses?
Yeah.
So here's our thesis. Do we think Kink should be at Pride? So I'm going to let Zena lay out our content warnings and our thesis.
So content warnings are as follows. Talking about kink, sex, consent, and childhood sexual assault. Is there anything else to add there? Or is that most of it?
I think that's most of it.
Okay. So please do be careful with yourself. Watch this in a good frame of mind.
If you need to walk away, mute it, come back, that's perfectly okay. We are not going to take it personally.
So here's our thesis statement, friends. We are in support of kink being done ethically and consensually, and kink's involvement at Pride events must adhere strictly to that. So our big disclaimer here, please note that as we talk about this, we are also responding to awful takes online, takes from people who clearly don't understand consent, people muddying the conversation, and bad faith actors. We are not just talking to people who know kink and are already familiar with consent. There's a lot more going on in this point. Yeah.
Okay, so our arguments break down into roughly two specific forums. The first one is a discussion about consent. So this is Zena's strong suit. They know kink way better than I do, so floor is yours, Kisses.
Yeah. So Planned Parenthood has this consent graphic. It says "I heart fries," and fries stands for freely given, versatile, informed, enthusiastic, and specific. And this is incredibly important to us. And if you're already familiar with consent, cool. If not, I'm gonna kind of go over this in a bit of a broad way, and also in terms of events, right? So freely given, this would, in my mind at least, would include showing up to the event without the event giving up disclosure about this being part of it. Doesn't give certain. So basically being able to show up to an event freely. Also, some of these are going to cross a little bit, but also informed about what to expect at that event, right? Are you showing up to a party? If so, what kind of party? Is it an all ages party, right? Is it an adult party? Okay, is this a beach party, right? The music festival? Who's the intended audience? All of these things kind of fall into that freely, into both, they can fall into the informed category, but also kind of your, really given. Also in here, is going to be like power structures to things to watch out for. Adults and children. Children can't consent. There you go. Like, you're not going to get free consent from a child, okay? So reversible. In any kind of situation involving sex, you have to be able to withdraw that consent. That is absolutely required. And in a big, large group, that may or may not really be a possibility, right? You're already in the situation by the time something has happened. There is no pre-existing way to say no. You haven't actually had any of that talks with people.
Muscle Mouse, to answer your question, I don't know because I haven't watched that. So I don't know what their arguments are, and I would feel very uncomfortable trying to do it. I'm going based entirely on things I saw on Twitter or larger things. So I can't speak to what they spoke about or whether they were pro or neg or whatever. So continues, yeah.
Oh, okay. So informed. The other part with informed, especially when we're talking about kink. This includes everybody involved. Now, when I say everybody, I mean everyone. If there are two people in a bedroom, that's two people. But if there are two people and then there are other people around you witnessing, no, they're also part of your kink at that point. And they need to be informed and also consenting.
Okay? Matt, what are you referring to? You say some situations you don't have the capacity to back out.
Oh, the capability to back out.
Like, what are you referring to? We're gonna continue, but yeah, I'd be curious what you mean by that.
If there are any situations where you don't have that capacity, that's not consent. If somebody is,
not being able to back out would be coercive by its very standard.
That would be absolutely coercive. So things like drunk, any kind of drugs involved, any of those situations, passed out, those are obviously non-consent. Yeah.
Next is enthusiastic.
Enthusiastic, that's not as big as a situation, but it's, feeling confident about a situation, right? This could be a good nervousness on, the plus side. Hey, it's my first Pride, holy crap, right? Good nervous, but you feel solid about going. And specific. When people are showing up to events with an expected societal norm, that's really important. Sorry, I'm reading here, and some of this got a little bit messed up when I was writing it during a migraine earlier. The migraine has since gone, and I'm looking going, wait a minute, brain, what were you doing? So when people are showing up to events, there is this expected societal norm at those events, right? I mentioned family friendly earlier. We kind of have an idea of what that means and kind of who's the target audience in those cases, or at least who we're especially trying to make sure is there. All right. And so specific events should tell you, right? Is there going to be music? Is there going to be drinking? If so, where is the drinking, right? Festivals include booths with information, shopping, all of that kind of stuff should be talked about, when you're looking at stuff. And that especially applies to our situation with what is acceptable to wear there, right? Okay. What is the acceptable way to act there? This is a thing. So I think all of this is kind of going into consent, and as far as event planning goes, you should be able to hit a lot of these. All right. Do you want to help me out with a little bit of this?
Yeah, do you want me help?
Yeah.
So I kind of wrote these out because I wanted to set them up, and I wanted to make sure Zena's arguments made sense for me. So here's what I put forth. It has in here, in kink, we know that consent is not a blanket statement and is for very specific acts. Be clear about what's happening. Yeah, Matt, to your idea, so if you're informed that it's a kink event and you choose to bring your child there, there's not really much I can do about that. However, if there isn't informed, it would then violate consent, and in which case, I would say that the kinksters or the event is now held responsible for that. As to the Twitch panel last night that everybody's talking about, I have no idea what that's about. So I know vaguely who Evie Levine is. I also saw her takes on Twitter. I was not... She seems very nice, and I think the one video I've seen, she was quite informative. Her takes on Twitter were not my favorite. So...
I haven't seen any of hers. I think I've seen one video in the total of YouTube, in the total of me being on YouTube. I just haven't
I think I watched part of the pet play video, but then I got busy with something.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is the argument that, as I understand, is what Zena was talking about. I'm just going to lay out it in very, very block terms. Kink in public, without notification, and without it being specifically an adult event, is a violation of consent in my mind. Premise 1. Consent in sexual or pseudosexual behavior is necessary. That is an ethical claim that I am making, full stop. Premise 2. The wearing of bondage outfits or kinky behavior is considered sexual by conventional society. One point on this, in our notes we have that news story from when the one dominatrix was running around the person in the grocery store. I don't care what online leftists say. I literally don't. This is not about, like, high-minded, fucking overly abstracted leftists. What this is about is, to the average person, if I walk up to them and go, does that seem like a sexual thing? They will say yes.
I want to be clear here that when we're talking about kink, there is an extra level of required negotiation just right off the bat. That is a thing. Like, we are talking about more advanced, specific situations. Okay.
Yeah, I guess I'm not understanding your argument, Tiamat. I am literally not following it. I'm sorry. I will try to better understand it, or go back through the thing after we're done with our arguments. Premise 3. Children cannot consent. This is legally true. Full stop. And some adults have not met the criteria for consent as outlined by aforementioned consent rules, the Fry system from Planned Parenthood. That is, if someone chooses freely to go to an event that is adult event, and that is their gig, fucking cool. If somebody is uninformed and they come in there and they're not really able to back out, say ticket issue, some other problem, spoiler, not reversible. If it's a question of being informed, again, make sure people are absolutely informed and knowledgeable and yada yada. Enthusiastic, is that person participating enthusiastically? Are they engaging? I would say there are people who have not met the criteria of consent just by their very being. People who have exhibit trauma, people who have, people who are ace and maybe sex repulsed. If they're not informed ahead of time that kink is accepted to this or adult behavior is accepted to this, to me, that gets into some really dicey consent issues.
Yeah, that absolutely is also in this too. Yeah.
So, conclusion. If kink gear is considered sexual at a cultural level by conventional people, I don't give a fuck what post-conventional and post-post-conventional people think, this is not about you. You are literally 20% of the population, and unfortunately, we have to kind of deal with the overall sort of consensus discourse. We have to realize this is the world they're kind of in. This is what's happening. And if behaving in a sexual manner requires consent as defined by Planned Parenthood, and if people either cannot give consent or do not want to give consent, then wearing kink gear or demonstrating kinky behavior in public is a violation of consent. This is not to say that kink gear is bad. It is not to say that kinky behavior is bad. What it is saying is, if I walk into Pride, and I am forced to see someone in incredibly specific bondage gear, I am not okay with that. If I am under the impression that this is a family event, that is, we are bringing children here, and I see someone with literally full bondage strap harness on, and I'll get to the all the weird side arguments people brought up. That's in the different section. But if I see that and I don't consent to it, I really do think that's a problem, right? So this is the argument we hold on to. It is not consensual if I don't want to see it. If I go to, and if the argument is, well, then don't go to Pride, that is not how that works.
And I want to be clear, when we're in public situations, people seeing it are part of it, okay? Seeing it, you are kind of involved, right? If somebody's got a kink where they're like, I want to wear, I've seen some really stupid things, okay? And if you are going to somehow do something sexual and then not think that the people around you are involved, that's a problem, okay? There are some really shitty things I've seen about,
True, Rosanna.
you know, trying to do stuff semi in pub.
Do you want me to do this one?
Yeah, I'll kind of just hop in when I can.
Yeah, just do it. Whatever you feel up to.
Yeah.
So,
I'll hop in for 2.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, this is the next argument. The two-state solution is joked about by Vosh, and I'm taking very fucking seriously. Premise 1. Kink seems to be important to members of the LGBTQIA. It's an issue of practicality and pragmatism. Morality doesn't really applies it. Yeah, this is not a moralism issue. These people aren't degenerates or fucking perverts. It's the fact is, this is optics. This is not about necessarily being transgressive.
Get to questions.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
We're gonna get to questions.
Hold
at the
off
end.
on questions till we get to the end, please.
Yeah.
So again, premise 1: kink seems to be important to members of the LGBT. Go ahead, Zena.
We can agree with that one. So premise 2: conventions and several prides do separate overt behavior appropriately via after dark programming or side/after parties. They also have explicit rules for conduct and dress well at the convention or event. This is already the norm for handling this stuff. I gotta be clear here. Any event I go to that decides to, any convention that I go to that decides to do After Dark are very clear. They have security. They have people checking ages on badges. Okay, they have special rules for when, minors can be around at night and they have to be a parent. There's several things going on here, but there is like a very clear. If you are in this situation, this is what's happening right now. This is what we have reserved this area for. And even the events themselves are still in a closed off room. Okay, so you're not just stumbling onto it.
Yeah, if you're at like a gaming convention, you're at like a fucking like anime convention, any of these things. These are all areas where these things are well separated off and done. I mean, to varying degrees, but yeah.
I'm going to be clear here. If they're not doing this well enough, jump ship, don't go. There's probably issues with that event, okay? So.
Premise 3. Children, asexual people, and others who either cannot or have not consented to kink or overtly sexual behavior should be able to attend Pride. This also includes people like myself who are survivors of childhood sexual abuse. Full stop. Premise 4. The value of making Pride safe does not seem universal within members of the LGBTQIA community. To me, this leads to the notion that we have bad actors. This is not to say that these are inherent to the LGBTQIA. What it means is that just like any community, there are people we should probably be wary of. Because there were a lot of dumb takes out there, and some of them downright creepy. Some of them were quite good. Again, ones I necessarily agree with, but they at least were of good faith, and they didn't give me the fucking willies. Premise 5. The LGBTQIA community has been fearful of talking about forms of abuse as they are regularly used towards us as a form of prejudice. So what I mean by this is that if you ever watch certain types of media, there's this thing that happens, and it's talked about on lots of channels, but I'll essentially do a very quick summation. I think of people who actually have covered this. I'll figure it out later. The thing here is that you'll notice in a lot of movies about queer culture, a lot of times things like abuse and the problems within relationships that get real problematic often are not necessarily shown. The reason for this is that I have a feeling when people are depicting LGBT plus people, the thing is that we do not want to give ammunition to our enemies. That is, if we show acts of a gay person or a lesbian or somebody being abusive, the fear is that will be generalized across all of us. And that's a legitimate fear. It makes sense. However, it does stifle discourse because then we can't talk about issues in which there are very real abuses in some of our relationships. Not because we're queer, but because relationships suck and some of us have trauma. I also would say is that this by its nature then leads to some of the issues when talking about various behaviors at Pride. The reactions I saw online lead me to believe as a premise that some people are very uncomfortable talking about these things for fear that there will be an immediate backlash and a perception that we will be vilified and called perverts and all sorts of other crazy shit. And there's a reality to that where that's partially true, but the problem is that when it turns into thought-terminating cliches, it causes issues. Premise 6. Children at Pride are important as your queer kids can get a sense of the community and resistant parents can be adequately supported to bring their children. So let's say you have a pair of parents that are moderates. Their kid recently is out as trans and they're still fucking coming to terms with that. You can say get over it, but the reality is that shit takes time for some people.
And the community they're coming from might not be great.
So if these people are coming from a place where they are not necessarily super comfy with some of this stuff, you might have to sort of pull some punches. You may have to figure out ways to make them feel comfortable. So the idea, again, separating things out is good. We want kids at Pride. Right now, trans kids are under fucking attack. We don't want kids at Pride. Are you on drugs? So, from these premises...
I was going to say, as far as the parental thing and bringing new people in, there are tons and tons of booths at Prides with lots and lots of information. Anybody who's not actually that familiar or wants more information, or wants to ask questions could absolutely go up to any of those booths and be like, hey, help me out with this question that I have, right? That's an important resource, especially when we're dealing with parents that are really confused. And God, those parents need some help.
So, from these premises, these are the following conclusions. Conclusion 1. For the sake of optics and safety, kink gear, kink behavior, and overtly sexual behavior, or anything that is conventionally held as sexual, should be confined to adult areas, after hours, separate pride-adjacent locations, etc. Conclusion 2. The LGBTQIA needs to improve the conversation about predatory behavior and abuse. Full stop. Yeah, Kaiser, not a goddamn person. You're gonna tell me kids shouldn't be at kink? If you're a newly out trans kid that got taken off your hormone blockers, you're gonna fucking tell me that girl can't go to Pride too? Like, what? There were people that were really willing to throw them on the slab. But can you imagine a poor trans girl recently out, taken off her blockers because Arkansas is a fucking goddamn state of monsters, and essentially she's now told she can't come to Pride because a bunch of people want to get horny?
Well, and can I be real here? Like, not like this kid and like my experience of like going to Pride as youth is that a lot of us go with all of our friends, right? Like we grab as many of us as we can. It's if you come from like a small town, it's the one parent out of your entire friend group who's like gay friendly, bringing a whole bunch of kids, you know, just trying to get them some like resource, right? Like just some sense of community or like, you know, safety, right? Like that's who these kids are. Like absolutely kids are a big priority for me.
Absolutely. And the problem is that like especially with young trans kids and then people and the current like attacks that are being made against them by the GOP, let's be very clear who our enemies are. This is an issue. I saw people on Twitter saying that Pride should not be family friendly or that people should be able to do what they want. I'll cover why this is incredibly stupid in a bit. But the reality here is that, again, queer kids are the next generation. These are the kids that are currently under attack because they realize the bathroom shit didn't work.
Yeah.
I am horrified. This is the one time I will moralize. I am actually horrified by the notion that kids can't come to Pride. That is that is utterly repugnant.
I gotta be real here. It says a lot if somebody can't handle like children being at this event. Like that says a lot about them. Like that to me is just like, wait, what? We're at a fucking festival. A festival.
Yeah. Conclusion 3. We need to reframe the way we look at sexual orientation and reframe it differently as we overfocus on the sexual aspects and not the relational. This leads to continued association of queer identities as being either viewed as perverts or fetishized. So I have to be very careful with this argument because I want to state it very clearly. I'll explain more later, but here's my big concern. There is a tendency to overly fetishize or associate sexuality with members of the LGBTQIA. Even the term sexual orientation, in all honesty, really bothers me. The reason being is that it overfocuses on an action or attraction and it ignores relationships. That's not to say attraction and sexuality isn't important. It absolutely is. But here's the thing. Who here saw Contra's video, Shame? If you saw that video, there's a point in it where she talks about the difference between being with partner then Chad versus her friend Joanne. And let's be super clear. The difference is staggering. A person you vaguely find attractive in sort of an abstract sort of, I guess, like vaguely like interesting way, like a cognitive way, versus I could wake up with you for the rest of my life. That's not to say purely sexual relationships are bad. That's not to say they can't happen. They absolutely can. Not arguing any of that. Please do not fucking straw man me. But ask any lesbians that have been in love for 10 years. Ask any gay couple that's been around for 20. Their relationship is not just how they fuck or who they fuck. Their relationship is about if Steve and Ted love each other, they love each other. They're in a relationship. They share fucking happiness and sadness. These are things. And when we frame things inherently as this big, like, sexual outness that is, like, I guess to me it makes sense at one level, but at another level, I feel like we're buying into our own stereotype. Like, this is a regular thing talked about. Have you ever seen the movie Blue is the Warmest Color? If you remember that movie, there's a sex scene between the two lesbian characters that basically was lesbian porn. Let's be very clear. The director and everyone on set was fucking drooling as these girls were doing this, and they kept them on set for hours. This is supposed to be the love affair between two women, and instead, it is incredibly fetishized. I feel like we buy into that. I feel like we want to sit there and be out and free and all that, and it's great. But why can't we just make sure there are spaces? Because for every good pride fair out there that does this right, there are stories about it not being done right. I have experience of this not being done right. And I get really uncomfortable, especially now that I identify as feminine, that to some degree you're actually making the argument that I have to just take my sexual objectification, that I have to go with the fetishization. That's really weird. So, with all that said, I'm going to cover two parts. Please feel free to interrupt at any point. I want you to part of this, okay?
Yeah, which are you doing now?
The next one. So, now that we've covered the arguments, and I think they're pretty fucking ironclad, I'm going to cover something very personal. Trigger warning for sexual assault, trigger warning for trauma. I have had partners in my life who, through no acts of my own, but through random fucking happenstance, have been in situations where kink has led to them being abused. This is not to say that is kink's fault or the kinky or the BDSM community in that area's problem. Often this was bad actors, people who took advantage of a situation and would prey on people who are currently emotionally distressed and would then proceed to abuse them under the guise of kink. This is not the whole population of kink by any way. Please don't strawman this. I cannot deal with that. The simple fact is that there are bad actors in those communities. And I have very real diagnosed secondary survivor's trauma from it. I watched as a partner dealt with their assault, watched as they had to come to the realization that everything that happened was horrifying, and I got my own mind shattered by this shit. The fact that I'm okay with kink now is astounding. Because there were times in the past where I was actively uncomfortable and yelling because I was so triggered. I was so absolutely traumatized because I kept seeing fucking ghosts. I kept seeing people who I thought were going to be predators. Feeds really well into my own trauma. We have to remember that if we're going to make pride something important, we need to make it accommodating. I think we need to be accommodating. There are people who can't really deal with that stuff when they see it. I've had that problem in the past. People with sensory issues. Blaring music at them is not a great way to make friends.
People who being around lots of drinks.
So I want to be really clear about this, is that my charge here is not just a sort of professional one vaguely or like a ethical one. It is more of a personal one. I want the people to be able to be freely expressing themselves, and I want them to do it in the most ethical and effective way humanly possible. I realize that Bosch was yelling about a particular picture that wasn't even to do with pride. Not talking about any of that. I'm just making it very clear. This stuff is hard. And I apologize to anyone that felt like I came too hard into it in the conversations on the Discord. There are a few people like Quinn and a number of other people that, genuinely speaking, we had some pretty aggressive conversations. They hung in there, and I appreciate that. But one of the things that this channel is built on is the notion of being protective of people, LGBT people, asexual people, and those people sometimes are kids. There's a reason why our Discord has so many protections in it that I am very careful that I don't bring anyone in there that could hurt somebody. Please understand, this is not just a fucking abstract discourse for the shits and giggles. This is a personal thing, and it shouldn't just be people get to do what they want. It should be, what is the best way for people to express themselves while not fucking other people over? So, that's the case. If there's anything you want to add, Kisses, I can do that now, or I can go through.
No, I'm really big on the consent here. That's really important to me. I haven't had. I do find I haven't had all the best relationships in the past either, and a lot of times people do. What are you laughing at?
Brittany, we'll go through the comments.
Okay.
We'll go through the comments after we get through the document.
Yeah. But no, like my comfort level with being involved in other kinks is not there, or with other people in a kinky way. That's not a thing I want. I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel good in that situation. And I would not consent to that because I know that's not something I really want to be handling, especially not on an event that I'm expecting to be a family event, right?
So I am seeing in chat that there's a bit of an audio issue. I'm going to try to move this around so it's better. I'm going to move it closer to me for just a second because we are going to go through a number of things very quickly. Okay?
Yeah, I think I've got one bit on that. And
so I'm just going to read the quote, and then Zena can throw in their bit, and then I'll just give what my arguments were. Okay.
Somewhere in there.
Okay, so these are some of the things that I saw on. Thank you, Ms. Pasta Master. I appreciate that. So these are the arguments I saw online. They are varying degrees of useful or just plain dumb. Between us, the most contentious one was, quote, kink and queerness are deeply intertwined. My arguments are this as follows. 1, this is an appeal to tradition. This is fallacious at the start. 2, queerness was connected to kink forcibly as we are considered deviant already. We still argue over the discourse of, is being with a trans woman this or that? Hell, they're fucking throwing that stuff as a new ways with the super straight bullshit. Older queer people justified awful behavior, including trying to cut out trans people, and many other parts of the anti-trans movement include TERFs that were part of the older gay movements. The idea that they did it that way previously is not an argument. And even if they are really intertwined, which I'm willing to entertain despite my previous arguments, this is not an argument, as it does not mean kink should be done irresponsibly. Zena, you wanted to add in your part?
Yeah. So there is a lot of history out gay people involving bathhouses, bars, all sorts of things like that. And when we say that the stuff is intertwined, well, yeah, I mean, this stuff happened at these situations, but the history of gay bars is not the same context anymore as public festival. Okay? It's not the same. And so, yeah, just because things were done in history that way does not mean that we need to do it. I've seen a lot of gay history where they were going for shock value. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
They were railing really, really hard against the normative people. Okay, and almost antagonizing at times. And maybe that's what they chose to do. No.
Maybe that was just what was needed
at the time. But right now, No, I wouldn't argue for that. I'm not happy with that. I want to make Pride more open to everybody. That's what I actually want, right? So, the history thing is real shaky for me because I just don't find that it applies anymore. I think it's good to learn about our history, but
Thanks, Rudon, for the donation, for the 129. Thank you.
yeah.
So, with that said, and I do agree with Zena on this despite my irritation, I will continue. Next argument I saw. Kids will just see them as costumes. My response. The effects of overexposure to sex and porn in front of children has been studied and do demonstrable harm as far as we can tell. There is some debate in this, as we're not quite sure what does what. However, if the kid is aware that there is something off on the context, that does fall into that same notion. I do think it is important to keep this in mind. The idea that they will just see this as costumes seems utterly fallacious. Next. Leather is a big part of the LGBTQIA. My two arguments. Leather isn't in question. This is a red herring and a false equivalency argument because not all kink gear is leather and not all leather is kink gear. Savvy? I saw people bringing this up all the time. I don't care if you're wearing biker gear. I don't care if you got a cute little hat. I know a lot of gay men love wearing leather. I don't give a shit about that stuff. That's not what we're talking about. No, Rosanna, it absolutely is an insult to kids' intelligence.
Yep.
Also, and this is where I nail these people, because this is where I start to believe they're acting in entirely bad faith when they make these comparisons. This might also be a Mott and Bailey, as the Bailey would be the kink gear and the Mott would be the leather as a whole. They throw out that they want to wear fucking bondage gear, but then they backtrack into leather because that's a much more defendable position. That's a Mott and Bailey. That's an argument tactic. That's what that is. That's literally a strategy. You throw out something incredibly controversial and then you backtrack into something much more defendable. Next. What about public nudity? This is a whataboutism argument because you have not demonstrated anything by that question. We are not talking about public nudity. There are nude beaches. There are other situations in Europe where people have different culture. The fact of the matter is, and I'm going to be really clear on this, public nudity, as far as we can tell, can still be done in a way that doesn't make it inherently sexual. There are people that go to nudist fucking camping trips and do shit like that. But I guarantee you, if any of y'all motherfuckers been on 4chan, I've heard a rumor that, again, people even go into those nudist camp shit and they will take pictures of people inappropriately and then post that. Like seriously. This idea that like public nudity is somehow, again, it's another dodge. This is a fallacy of false equivalency, as we are conflating two different cultural phenomenons with very different rules and understandings around them and assume the reactions are the same. They're absolutely not. Nudists go off on their own and do little camping trips, go to the beach, hang out together. Often because if they bring their children are probably going to not be wearing a lot of clothes, and they're probably wanting to be very careful of them and keep them away from motherfucking predators. Next. Everyone likes it at Pride. This is an argumentum ad populum, as it is pretty clear that some queer people are uncomfortable with this. Example, me. And even if queer people as a whole did like it, that's still not a defense. It doesn't mean it's good optics. It doesn't mean it makes fucking sense. I'm not trying to moralize. I just don't understand why we are so dead set on something so fucking trivial. Next argument. Bondage gear isn't inherently sexual. Nothing in it is inherent to anything. I am an existentialist, a Buddhist, and an optimistic nihilist. Things exist based on the meaning people construct around them. If the majority of the culture makes meaning in a particular way, that is not to say not to change it. We absolutely can change it. We can push through it. But we have to agree on that meaning and act accordingly. Kink gear by the average person is going to be seen as sexual. And if you think that's not the case, I don't know what you're on about. I just don't get it. It seems like either it's just a bad faith argument or it's just the attempt to be transgressive and you're hiding it under a belief that you can basically sort of like gaslight me into believing this is a thing. Like, oh, it'll be fine. You'll love it. It'll be great. No. And I'm using colloquial gaslighting, not the fucking actual real term. I know YouTubers love doing that. Now I'm falling into the habit. God damn it. Next. Without kink, Garrett, this sexual aspect of pride will be gone. This is so problematic on so many levels. First, this is a slippery slope fallacy. The former does not necessarily lead to the latter. Full stop. It just doesn't. It's literally hand-wringing. Next, this is a fallacy of false dilemma. This is not likely and not the only possible outcome. People can still have that sexual vibe at fucking pride without it necessarily getting into some like kink shit or carrying around giant dildos. And this is the one that I came up with, and I'm pretty proud of this argument, so bear with me. Sexuality is not necessarily connected to overt actions, but the context of the situation. My example? A wedding. So if you watch a lovely bride and groom get married, they go through the whole ceremony, they're wearing their formal best. What are they going to do at night? You damn well know what they're going to do. The sexual connotation is literally built into the event. He doesn't have to rail her at the fucking altar in order for it to count. This idea that the sexual aspect of pride will be gone. It's literally about people and their relationships, and sex is a part of relationships. Whether A, they have relationships without sex in the case of ace people, or the fact that you're talking about allosexual people of any stripe. Ooh woo. A simple het wedding is a perfect example of the fact that the sexuality can be built right into the fucking thing, and you don't have to necessarily be super fucking explicit with it. Now, again, if you're talking about this in the adult area, the after dark area, the places with this, that's cool. No harm, no foul. Go have fun. Smack each other with dildos like they're lightsabers. Do it. Next. You are being a prude or a conservative. This is an ad hominem and an appeal to emotion due to the thought-terminating statement. That's what that is. It's a thought-terminating cliche. When you attack a leftist or a liberal and say that they're being like a conservative, or you're afraid they're going to do this, that, or the other thing, no, I'm going to really clearly come out and say this. What you're trying to do is shut down the conversation because you don't have an argument. My comfort level is mine, and I get to fucking have it. My consent matters just as much as anybody else's. Full stop. And now, this is where I get canceled. And I believe we're of the same fucking page on this one. One of the people I like watching is Vosh. I know that's going to get me in trouble. I don't give a fuck. The arguments online were Vosh was too aggressive or hyperbolic. This is what I say. One, this is a fallacy of tone policing. His anger is not an argument. He saw a picture that got him upset because his chat lost their fucking minds and started saying a bunch of dumb shit. I know, I watched that stream. The first one, not the second one. The one he didn't post as a segment.
Oh, I watched that first one too.
There were awful things in his fucking chat, and he got triggered. Guess what? He's allowed to be fucking triggered. He's human.
Also, when people are saying that much awful shit, fuck them. Like, goddamn. Like, he can totally ban people that are just saying dumb shit and not... I don't even remember all of what was said in there. I really don't even remember.
I honestly don't want to even go through it, but I'm going to be really clear on this. I think Vosh had some points. I also think Vosh spoke hyperbolically. And I'm also going to say that I don't think we should be fucking tone policing a pansexual person who actively has gone out of his way to one, argue on behalf of trans people and has absolutely been an ally to other members of the LGBT. And the simple fact is, and this is what I'm going to be really clear on, I was horrified at the biphobia that I saw on Twitter. I have never seen people try to fucking legit manipulate someone or coerce someone into thinking they never fucking had sex with other people, or somehow setting these bizarre fucking goalposts oh, you have to fuck this number of men to ride this ride. This is awful. And the fact that we had people in our communities saying this is really fucking bad. If I see anyone in my community, anyone whatsoever, ever act like that towards a bi or pan person, like me, it will be a permaban. Full stop. Last stupid argument. Kids shouldn't be at Pride. This is nonsensical and actively harmful to the community and optics, especially in light of the anti-trans kids arguments like this in the news circuits currently. Let me be very clear. Anyone that makes the argument that kids shouldn't be at Pride should be looked at with suspicion. If they argue for an adult area or a kink area and then kids can have like the family-friendly area with face paint and cool shit like that, well, Brittany, your mom is fucking pan and I am absolutely that as well. Do you understand this? I will not accept this argument. If anyone in my community ever fucking says kids can't be at Pride, I will absolutely go off.
Also,
I work with queer teens. The idea they can't do this, sorry.
Let's go ahead.
The idea they can't do this is so fucking gross. Go ahead, Zena.
Oh, I was just gonna say, somebody said something about kids lying about their age. That's not even a thing here. Like, we're not even talking about that. I'm sorry, but those areas, if you set them up properly, you are checking for ID. Done.
Oh, wait. Ash Ronukin said they're just gonna... Ash, I will literally have you come on here and debate me. This is not even okay. That is... The idea that they're just gonna lie about their age, that is absolutely nonsensical. Yes, they could, but we are talking about a fraction of a fraction. Are you really like...
And again, that's not even the issue that we're talking about here.
No, kids are absolutely important to Pride. Anyone says that they can't be there, anyone says that they are absolutely like not okay to be there, full stop. Now, granted, I will say this to deep dive. If you meant that in the way that they're going to sneak in anyway, if you try to block them, then I agree with you on that premise. If you're saying it as a way to shut down that they can go, then we have a different argument. I will say that. I might have misunderstood you. But understand this. Anyone, I'm going to hold this to such a very high standard. Anyone that says kids shouldn't be at Pride, full stop, do not become a part of my community. You are not welcome. Zena, go ahead. You have anything else you want to add?
I mean, I'm very much on we have a lot of young people that are around us. Like, there is absolutely a lot of protection, healing that goes on there, because no, we know the shit that they go through at school, at home, just walking out on the street. I would like to think that kids don't, get harassed when they're walking around town, but no, I've heard stories about that happening.
One quick thing. By the way, chat, I was angry, so if I was confusing people's arguments, don't worry, we're going to go back through them after this. I apologize if I fucked anybody up or attributed things that didn't go to you. I might have fucked that up, my bad. Anyway.
I also look at this as there are a lot of kids in situations that don't necessarily have the power to get out of them because of their age. Okay, this is not an adult who's got a job and has a separate income. Okay, this is a kid that needs a place that is going to be accepting and affirming to them. If you're an adult, you can just fucking go places. You just do whatever the shit you want. Okay.
Kiarasha, I have no idea. So real quick, and I'm just gonna say this very simply.
Yeah. Point being, I want kids at Pride. And they're actually probably more priority to me than other
people. Yeah, right. Like full stop.
God, every bar can just have their own event.
I forgot who just said this. My brain is full of mush. Here's the thing. Someone in chat just said that like if we don't let them be part of Pride, they may engage in stuff in an unsafe way. And this is my problem with this thing. This idea that we just don't let kids into Pride means that they're going to sneak in or they're going to do things that are absolutely, unfortunate, and they're going to be either targeted by the few people that may actually be bad actors, or, and let's be really clear on this, I've made this argument before, I've said before when talking to parents, it's not about the fact of what you want or don't want. It's about what they tell you. Your teens will come to you with their problems, no matter how intimate, if they trust you and know that you are safe. If they think you're going to be a rage monster, they won't do that. And in the same way, do I want kids learning about kink from random motherfuckers at Pride, or do I want them to learn about kink from people that know what the fuck they're talking about, or going to an after dark class and learning rope? Like, again, I'm just really clear on this. Like, I'm not anti-kink. I have every right to be, considering how fucked up it's been in my life. But the fact of the matter is I'm not. I really think people should have the right to do whatever the fuck they want as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. I want you to be able to do this stuff, but it has to be consensual, and it absolutely cannot do this again. We cannot. This discourse has been so toxic and so bad, and it's revealed so many fucking weaknesses. So, closing thoughts, very simple things, and then we're gonna get to questions in the chat. We'll go back through the chat in full. Topics we're not touching on during this because they need more research and data. 1.
I can read. Do you want me to read these off?
Yeah, please. My throat's slashed.
We're not talking on the two-parter here. What exactly defines a sexual orientation and is okay? Also, legal issues around BDSM activities. That's separate. And is kink marginalized, and what does marginalized mean? Also separate.
Yeah, so
we're trying to stay on topic here, okay?
Yeah. So real quick, those 3 things. The reason why we're not covering them tonight is because the amount of data we could find was really unclear. It is a debate in generally just psychology. There's a debate that whether or not kink is a sexual orientation or it is an action that is performed, a hobby.
And is sexual orientation the right language to use? Right, that's somewhere in there. Yeah,
because it does in some cases. Some of the criteria it meets, some of it doesn't. It's really unclear. Legal issues, again, that depends on your state, your country, whatever. It's really hard to know which one's which. And then, is kink marginalized, or what does marginalized mean? This all comes down to the legal issues. This comes down to a lot of questions. But again, I use marginalized in regards of systemic oppression. No one is getting pulled over for being kinky and shot by the cops if they play Simon Says wrong. So that's where I have to put this. For me, I want to focus on large groups that are actively being oppressed. Trans people literally lose rights depending on who's in office. Black people are still being shot by cops.
So, that being said, I think we can switch over to questions.
Let me bring this over. Okay, so I will try to get through this. Let me go back to the last time I was looking.
All the stuff we address and we.
Okay, so I'll read them out, and if you want to, I'll let you answer first. I'll read them out, and then I'll give mine.
That just looks like a statement.
Yeah, it looks like a weird statement.
Went a little bit more. I can't text.
I can't because it will throw off this.
Oh, got it. That one.
Right there.
That I can read that now.
So a deep dive said, I'm straight, and like I said, I wasn't going to talk about this unless I was specifically asked about optics. Now, all of this is anecdotal, take it with a grain of salt. First off, if the main event of Pride became suddenly very sexual, the outcome of this in America would be almost entirely unpredictable. However, the perception of Pride would change, and this depends on the extent of sexual content and how other LGBTQ members would react to it. I would argue that the general support would probably stay fixed or slightly decrease in the next few years, and it depends on a lot of other factors. However, let's be very clear. If the support goes down too much, gay marriage will be gone forever. That's not even to mention the effects, or not to mention trans issues. Conservatives are still very powerful. I mean, I'm not going to finish this because I agree with this. Generally speaking, giving these people ammo is never a good idea, and they've literally signaled that they still want gay marriage back. That's literally just what happened. You have anything on that?
Oh, I think that sounds to agree with most of our optics stuff. Optics are a thing whether you like it or not.
The argument regarding public nudity is kind of a bait and switch that attempts to evade dealing with the current reality. Absolutely true, Tiamat. They said that at 10. She said that at 10:23. Let's see. Yeah, just wait like 5 hours and be horny when you can be horny. Like, yeah, I mean, again, like, just wait till, like, just have it, like, be, like, you have from all day to 10 p.m. be non-horny time, or, like, light horny time, and then after 10 is horny time.
Yeah. I want to address
Which one?
that one. So this says, yeah, kink is specifically sexual. It's the point of kinks. The thing that we've been arguing, just for clarity's sake, is that societal perceptions, especially, are the sexual thing. I don't want to incidentally erase, ace people participating in kinks. That's the thing. We do kind of have this overall societal view of it, and also a large percentage of people involve sex in this as well.
Yeah.
These are acts that I would say, even if there's not a sexual element, still require an extra level of consent and negotiation specifically for that act. And any of that stuff that's in kink, if it's not meeting prize, freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and specific, people involved and everybody who can see it and are around for it, it's not consent. Okay?
Yeah, so real quick, I'm gonna say right here is the reason why we're not going deep dive on this one, kink is specifically sexual, it points to kink, it's the point of kink, is because this is actually hotly debated in a lot of philosophical circles. It really just becomes an issue of how is it perceived optically. And again, yes, non-sexual kink still requires consent.
Still be aware of it.
I mean, again, like, people can go to a dominatrix, get spanked on the butt, and they never do anything directly sexual. Like, let's be very clear. Yes, it has a sexual connotation, perhaps, but come on, be adults. Being triggered is not an argument. He also implies to have been exposed has been exposed to people being abused as kids. Sure. Yeah, the biphobia is actually disgusting. Sure, that's too. Bosch actually helped me think of trans people as people. Aw, people hug.
Yeah.
No, that's good. Also, I'm bi and very aggro. Oh, Brittany, I love you. You make me so happy. I'm actually kind of curious what portion of people argue that kids shouldn't be a pride are actually operating on a circular logic. Pride isn't for kids, therefore it shouldn't be for kids. That is actually very true. That is a very circular reasoning.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie, they're gonna participate anyway. Ash Roken said that. Okay. So that was the one I probably made a mistake on. Ash, I apologize if I misunderstood what you were saying. What I think you meant there, at least what I'm understanding, tell me if I'm wrong, is that the kids are still going to get in there, so still having this separated is a good idea.
I'm sorry if there's
that was my misunderstanding. I took that as a, well, why should we worry about it, because they're going to see it anyway kind of argument, because I did see some of that shit on Twitter. Kids need to be at Pride. Kids need to be Pride. Good. You're good, Jess. Is vaguely kind of at looking at chat. Thank you, Brittany. Yes, I fucked that up, Ash. I'm young. I still have young friends. Kids belong at Pride. True.
Yeah.
If they're banned at Pride, they're just gonna want to go anyway. I mean, that's also true. Then they'll do it unsafely. I agree. Pride is one of the few places kids going to feel welcome, as they haven't built up their community and safe spaces yet. Keeping them away from that isn't okay. Well, Clueless, I agree 100%.
Absolutely.
No, you didn't, Ash, you didn't you didn't write it poorly. I read it poorly. You're fine.
No, when we're going on a long thing, sorry, sometimes things get confused. It's okay.
We want kids to learn about sex and safe control. I agree. Actually, I think that is something that would be really interesting, is with parents' consent, doing a lot of that activism. We already do some of this.
So I gotta be honest, most all of my sex ed
came from Pride?
As not from Pride specifically, but in my area, I was part of a teen LGBT group in the nearby city, and they definitely had people come in and talk to us about safe sex a lot, and made a lot of information readily available, and actually gave us real actual sex ed that was like comprehensive.
So real quick, I want to do this because Deep Dive specifically tagged me. Deep Dive said, can you hammer down on how important communities are for young people? Yes, I can do that. Communities are absolutely important for young people. We know that social supports absolutely can be a determinant of whether or not a kid decides to, I don't know, try suicide. This is a big deal. Community is one of the best ways you can totally connect and find people that are like you. In fact, this is one of the best things about the internet, is the internet has allowed queer communities to have better discourse, better discussions. The fact that there is a difference between pan and bi, and I know that's debatable, but the fact is that people did feel a need for that discussion that was handled in an online forum. This is the thing that's really important, and I would argue that a lot of trans people have benefited from this. Obviously not from the harassment, but this is a thing.
Planned Parenthood totally rides, by the way.
Yeah.
They really do.
The question is, should kink be a pride? It feels more effective to diverting yourself to discussing the practicality of banning kids, which is a step the argument shouldn't be getting into. Agreed. I think everyone in the chat overall agrees with you, Jess. Just more people are trying to make sure they understand. Yeah, please don't gatekeep pride at kink, or gatekeep kink from pride, and let's keep the environment safe for kids. Our statements that it can coexist. Fucking true, Toby.
Yep.
By the way, Toby's a youngin'. Like, let's be clear, not minor youngin', but again, like, the kids, young people have a fucking like thing on this.
Absolutely.
Y'all honey motherfuckers can wait 3 hours. Once you start talking about the practical banning, not only are you, for purposes of argument, especially in the eyes of the opposed stance, ceding the idea that banning kids, yeah, you basically, by banning kids, by anyone that said that, essentially what you're saying is that kids should not be around this. How much fucking activism is done so fucking people could adopt?
God, right?
You egocentric motherfuckers. Jesus Christ. Absolutely non-sexual kinks still consent to do. Schubert always coming in with the hot take. I'm sorry for not wording. Again, Ash, you did fine. I did shitty. And I think we're caught up. I also got to double down on community because being important to young people is an issue. I agree 100%.
And I want to be clear here, like, we really do have data that even trans kids with one person, just one person that they can talk to and feel comfortable talking to, absolutely means that they are less likely to commit suicide. Like, that's our attempt. Sorry, both of those. Like, that's a thing that we need to really notice. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm not even saying sorry. Like, I am absolutely for making sure young people have the sorts of things. Like, god damn it, I was one of those queer kids too. I didn't have jack shit. I had to go to other cities to find support. And you know what? I'm glad I did.
So, I think we've covered everything. I think we got it done. I think.
Dare I say it?
Did we make it through the discourse? Has the discourse been fed?
If you, to the point where it can complete
if
for a
you
while.
feel like we have adequately fed the discourse, post discourses in chat. Bring me my discourse.
Apples too. Apples are good, apparently.
There we go.
Aw, I've got apples. Apples
Catherine,
it's
the joke in the community is it's 2 words. It's discourse. We all fear the discourse. We respect the discourse out of fear. So, I think we covered this. This has been a fucking couple days. Between dealing with this during migraines and then watching debate after debate after debate. Yeah, we out of fear,
not
Brittany.
all of them were even great. Like, there's so much just random
there you
shit
go, Catherine.
being thrown around.
So, but this is the thing. After Vosh very much clarified his positions, especially, yeah, I know, we're all canceled. Fuck off. Oh, cool. So alarm's going on.
The alarm cancels us too, apparently. There we go.
I know, it was, the conversations. And I love these people. I love Quinn. I love the people we were arguing with. Jesus Christ, these get esoteric and really weird.
No, Jess and I have been really together on this one, watching a lot of these things together and just groaning and yelling together. Like, it's been really rough. Both of us have just been like, oh, geez.
Also, if you get a chance, send a nice hug to Quinn in the Discord. They hung with me as far as conversations like a champ. I tried to cover everything we talked about tonight, so I'm not gonna like respond to a bunch of stuff. But like if you see Quinn in there, just send him a hug or a nice like high five. They're fucking cool. Quinn's good people. I really like Quinn. Really cool trans woman. Anyway, here's the thing. I think we covered this. I think we covered this effectively, and I think we did it in a way that was fair to everyone. I don't know how Stark Mad, they don't put me to sleep, I just get more enraged. The recent one on Modern Day Debate with Vosh and the other dude, T-Jump, or what the fuck his name was making me want to hit myself in the face.
I start yelling at podcasts that just listens to openly.
We do need we might need to get a hyper source, it's fair. I'm working on with Lizzie right now getting a new hypers, a new glowing eye one that's going to be of probably me. But I just want to make it really clear, like, I don't want anyone to feel like we're kink shaming you. I don't want anyone to feel like we're trying to like keep you from being and enjoying your bodies. Sex and sexuality is absolutely a beautiful fucking thing. And if you're a person that happens to be allosexual, if you're somebody who experiences sexuality in that way, you should absolutely get to do those things. You should absolutely get to participate in those things. But we really have to be aware that it's unfortunately, and I know this is going to get a Joker take, but we do live in a society, and we do have to consider the ramifications of our actions, because we're fucking adults. So, I'm probably canceled. Zena's probably canceled. I stand with I still stand with Vosh on this. I still think that he had some very good points.
I'm in the same boat on this Vosh.
Yeah.
And when hearing the context of that, you know,
I thought Hyena's sharing on that was really solid.
Absolutely, that was.
But anyway, yeah. I think we've covered everything. I'm tired. I want to play video games. So
it is the after.
Is the after? Now it's aftercare time.
It is absolutely aftercare time.
So get yourself some snacks. So if you are somebody watching this VOD right now, do us a favor. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you're someone who really hated everything I said here, put it in the chat below. Give me good arguments. Convince me. Bring forth your best. And if you want to convince me, it can be a lubricated process in the form of you can donate at streamlabs.com/transgirltherapist/tip. I am not above bribes. Brides? I like brides too. Anyway.
I mean,
so being one,
you
sleeping
being
one. Anyway,
one.
anyway, sorry. I've been bad. So again, if you feel like this was a really good discussion and you feel like it was really meaningful to you, please donate. This is something we do because we really like it and we really want, to help. If you want to help us in the long term, you can absolutely become a patron. Patreon.com/transgirltherapist. For as low as $3, you can help us out. Raygun, love you. You are the best and coolest, and you're rad. The threats get more and more confusing the longer you don't subscribe. Ring that fucking bell. Jesus Christ, ring the bell. So, with that said, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.